Welcome to the Cambridge Tech Podcast, talking all things technology from the heart of the UK's tech capital. Here are your hosts, Faye Holland and James Parton.
Hi, I'm James.
And I'm Faye. So well done, James. You've done a promo video this week. You're a TikTok star.
Yeah, your definition of star is a little bit broad, I think. Does that mean, can you do them from now on and I don't have to do them anymore? Or
No, this is a duo, James, you see. You've got to do your stint as well. It was great. It was a good update.
It was 2.5 minutes long, though. You told me off for it being too long.
Yeah, I know. I'm like sub 30 seconds, maybe a minute, but 2.5 minutes. Listen, we've got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah, okay. All right. Thanks for your support. So how's your week been this week?
It's been good. I'm still doing a lot of the actions that I probably didn't do during CamTech Week and doing the follow-up. But I think it'll take months to do all the follow-up from CamTech Week. Yeah, and just getting back into it, really. What about you?
Yeah, a little bit the same. I had a few really interesting chats with folks this week. So caught up with Caroline Hyde, who we're going to hear from in this episode, which was lovely, as always. And caught up with Adelina Chalmers. Many people will know Adelina, so that was nice to catch up with Adelina. Met with Sian Gardner from Trinity College, just talking about the plans for entrepreneurship support in Trinity. And we've been busy. We recorded 4 new episodes this week, didn't we? Which obviously, if anyone's seen my spectacular video on TikTok, they'd know that.
Yeah, we've got a lot of University of Cambridge and the Enterprise Network stuff going on all in one go. It just happens sometimes that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think we've said this before, but we've also got new listeners joining us all the time. We try to keep it fresh and mix things up, don't we? So there'll be periods where we have a lot of conversations with startup founders. Then there'll be periods of time when we speak to people that are kind of enablers in the ecosystem, and that's obviously a key part that the university plays. So we like to keep it mixed up, don't we, and fresh rather than get into a kind of formula.
Indeed. A couple of big events came on this week as well. So we had the Ideas to Reality event, which I went along to. It's the Cambridge Enterprise annual showcase. It's always super well attended. On the same evening, though, it was also Amadeus Capital's annual showcase in London. So obviously I couldn't go to both of them, but I did manage to catch up with Amelia separately. And this is what she had to say. Hi, Amelia. Thanks so much for coming on to give us a quick update. How did the event go this week?
Yeah, thanks very much for having me. We had our innovation showcase on Tuesday night and it went really well. We had a record attendance of people, which was brilliant. And we were able to show people within our network, so our investors, co-investors, the friends of Amadeus, about 16 of our portfolio companies. And it's an event that we've held for the last 10 years, and it basically gives access to these people to the portfolio. And it's super exciting. We use it as a way of getting on new investments in front of people and just basically giving exposure to our investors. So they can meet the underlying companies rather than just hear from us directly, which they really like.
Brilliant. And were there any, obviously it's a portfolio, so there are any specific companies that were doing something or showing something new or different this year?
Yeah, it was great to see a lot of our Cambridge portfolio there. So Xampla came, they're a bioplastics company who are looking to replace oil-based plastics with plant-based equivalents. And they exhibited lots of their products. So people got excited about that. So I could see people wandering around the room with their leaflets and information. They had lots of the single-use takeaway boxes, which they'll be selling, that'll be sold through the supply chain. They had all those on display, which was great. And then we had Paragraph, who came from Cambridge, so the company that is scaling up the manufacture of graphene for use in electronic sensors. They're at an exciting stage of now having 2 sites, and so Simon Thomas was there to talk to people. And then we had our quantum companies from Cambridge, so both Riverlane and New Quantum were there. Riverlane's just raised this impressive $75 million financing round, which is great. And so Earl Wood, who came along from their team. And then in terms of new investments that we've been making this year, we were delighted that SiteHop were able to join us. So they're a company that are doing very fast encryption and decryption of data. And so they're a Sheffield-based company, and so that was the first time that they've exhibited. And they had made some great connections with potential government-related contacts who will be able to help them. So that was great.
And that's what it's all about, isn't it? You know, your event, it's about connecting those people together. And I believe Simon French was also there. So what was the conversation that you had, and what new insights came out that we should know about?
Yeah, so Simon French is head of research and the chief economist at Panmure Liberum. And he was great. He just did a 10-minute talk. And what was interesting is he covered the importance of innovation clusters. And we obviously see that in the UK, that, you know, Cambridge is this great sort of cluster, but, you know, also with Oxford and London not being that far away. And I think what we're seeing in the UK, that we're now seeing, you know, Sheffield, Leeds, Manchester, these other areas where there's an increase in the number of spin-outs. There's more funding for these companies, as there are more funds that have set up that are focused on helping these startups, and also the general increase in the tech transfer teams in these universities there. And so it's super exciting that we're seeing the growth of clusters just outside of the sort of southern region in the UK.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely a strong message as we move into a new year, isn't it? That the clusters are emerging across the UK, which is great.
Yeah, very good.
Okay, thank you so much for your time coming on and just giving us that update. I can't believe it's a year since we last had you on the podcast, so we'll have to get you back on at some point in time, Amelia.
No, that's great. Thanks for having me. It's always really, really nice to speak to you.
Well, it's great to hear Amelia again on the podcast. It's been a while, hasn't it? We should really get them back on at some point to talk about Amadeus.
Absolutely. So should we cover some other news pieces? We did miss a couple of news items actually during Chemtech Week. So the first one of note was Poppy Gustafson of Darktrace is stepping down as CEO. She's being replaced by Jill Popelka in what looks like a move to have senior leadership based in the US once the acquisition by Thoma Bravo completes. They have, however, pledged that the R&D brains behind Darktrace will remain here in Cambridge.
Business Weekly this week have published some research, which they're calling the brain gain rather than the brain drain. The research has reported that academic and research bodies in the east of England are producing record amounts for the UK economy, with the Cambridge cluster at the fore. Drilling down into the funding raised by Cambridge companies with institutional links alone, a staggering $1.35 billion has been harvested by pioneering corporate innovators in the last 12 months.
Yeah, amazing figures. I mean, it kind of doesn't matter. Pounds, dollars, they're big numbers, aren't they? So much to celebrate there. And there's more details of that brain gain research within Business Weekly's posts online as well. And then the final piece of news is the new CEO of Cambridge Enterprise has been announced. So Dr. Jim Glasheen is assuming his post later on in 2024. Dr. Glasheen has over 25 years of experience across industry and university environments in both Silicon Valley and the Cambridge, Massachusetts innovation ecosystem. And he was also co-founder and president of 2 biotech companies. And we've already been approached about getting Dr. Glasheen onto the podcast. So watch out for that episode, hopefully early in the new year.
Fabulous. I think that's the end of this week's news. So let's get cracking with today's episode, where we talk to Caroline Hyde from Cambridge Enterprise.
Caroline, welcome to Cambridge Tech Podcast.
Thank you very much. Lovely to be here.
Great. So I think we first met when you were heading up Allia.
Yes.
But I was looking yesterday evening for a picture for the social post. And good old Google, you came up on the list of the 25 most influential people in Cambridge in 2017. Do you remember that?
I do. Yeah, I do. It's great. I think within the space of a year, it was both that award and also was put in with some great company for influential businesswomen as well. So yeah, it was a great compliment and great to be in and amongst other people that were doing incredible things with the ecosystem. But yeah, that feels like a lifetime ago.
It does, doesn't it? 2017. It's like, oh, crikey, how did that happen? But just give everyone who doesn't know you a little bit of an intro as to how you got to Cambridge Enterprise.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in Cambridge now for about 23 years, I think, and came from very much a kind of business development, sales and marketing role, and went to work with Anglia Ruskin University, working with their research, development and commercialisation office. And really through that kind of fostered a passion of working with that intersection between academia and industry, and working with startups, specifically in the creative and cultural industries at that point. And then found a connection with Martin Clark at Allia, who were looking at that point at developing the first future business centre. And then I took maternity leave, and when I came back looking for a role, they were advertising for a centre director. So I went to work with them. One centre became 4 centres over Cambridge, Peterborough and East London. And we worked with a whole range of different startups in the social and environmental space, which kind of became broadened out into impact ventures. And then when I came to look for a new challenge, Cambridge Enterprise was looking for somebody to join the team, and it just felt like a great way of taking my experience in different areas to bring something new to Cambridge Enterprise.
Thanks for that, Caroline. So, as you say, you're now at Cambridge Enterprise, and we're definitely going to talk about your role at heading up IE Cambridge. But before we get into that, you're here to talk about a new report you've just published, which is Innovation and Entrepreneurship at the University of Cambridge. So why don't you tell us the backstory of the report and why you came to publish that?
Absolutely. So about 18 months ago, Cambridge Enterprise took on the University Enterprise Network. And this really brings together about 95 different actors across the university and the wider Cambridge ecosystem, who were all focused on developing entrepreneurial thinking and acting and innovation at the university. And part of that was to create really a umbrella brand and identity that could represent the community holistically. So we launched IE Cambridge, Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And one of the things that we realised really that was missing was a kind of holistic story of what was actually happening within the university, and really to be able to tell both the success but also what the university was doing in a really compelling narrative. So this was something that we've produced for the first year this year. We hope it will be an annual thing, but it really gives an insight into what the university have done, what they're continuing to do, and the investment that they're making in entrepreneurship as a whole within the institution.
Yeah, we were lucky to get a sneak peek to help us prepare for this. And it really does do all of those things that you describe. It's packed full of really interesting data, loads of great examples of the companies that have spun out of the university. I mean, there's so much in there, but one thing that jumped off the page for me was for every pound the university spends, it creates £11.70 of economic impact.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think this was really telling in the economic impact study that the university did recently. So what it showed was that the university contributes annually about 30 billion through its activities and its impact. But actually 23 billion of that comes from its commercialisation activities. So spin-out companies or those associated with the university as well. And I think for the first time, what that demonstrated was that alongside the teaching and the research that the university is known for and that global strength, that actually innovation and entrepreneurship plays a really big role in its impact. And so what we wanted to do was use this report to highlight that, this is really the third pillar of the activity at the university, and shine a light on not just what has happened, but what the university is continuing to do in investing in that.
And it must, for you, with your background, it must be kind of really important to get that social impact message across as well. So you've got impact, but you've also got the social element to it. And it also it's like a conjoining now of all the different activities that are going on, because I read some of the report and it definitely is Innovate Cambridge and some of their missions. So do you see it also helping to galvanise and pull other activities together?
So I think just to take maybe those two bits separately, I think from the social side, the university's mission has always been around that combination of social and economic impact. Yeah. That guides very much what Cambridge Enterprise does as well. Our remit really is to ensure not just the things that are going to make the most obvious economic return, but the things that are going to have the deepest and most positive societal impact as well. So I hope what this shows is that it is that blending of really starting to think about, not just about creating great companies, but creating companies that are having a really positive impact on the world. The Xamplas, Colorifix, T-Therapeutics, companies that are really beginning to make that change. To your point about the connectivity, I think that's a really big one. Cambridge as a whole and within the university has this fantastic mature ecosystem of support, but it's grown really organically. And as with maybe other things in Cambridge, the connectivity between them isn't necessarily very obvious. And I hope that one of the things that we've really been able to achieve with the University Enterprise Network and IE Cambridge is to really pull out that connectedness and the connectivity. So making it much easier for people to find that pathway of support, both from having an idea or even maybe if they're just curious, they don't have to necessarily want to be an entrepreneur, but they just want to expand on what entrepreneurial thinking and innovative thinking looks like. Right the way through to sort of Cambridge Enterprise Ventures, who are making those large-scale investments, pre-seed, seed and Series A into companies.
As someone that has seen this at arm's length, I think you have achieved that because it's so much more coherent now in terms of how you interact with the university and the signposting of things. And that, as you say, that kind of branding brings everything together. That's no small undertaking though, right? Because we hear all the time that one of the strengths of Cambridge is no one asked for permission to start things.
Yeah.
And it must be the ultimate herding cats job of trying to catalogue and signpost. And I mean, the directory that you publish each year, that alone, that's a thick book.
It is.
Which just shows you the volume of what's going on in the city. How do you do it?
So, I think that, as you said, it's its strength, but it does make the practical accessing of it really difficult. If you're coming to the university new, and even some of the support providers themselves, you might know a bit, but you don't necessarily know how to access the full range of things. So we've tried really hard to make it as comprehensive as we can and then really to bring that data together. So, it's a lot of working with individual programs, with activities, with event organisers, and then getting their buy-in to the fact that, we all benefit from having this ease of signposting and navigation for people to find the support that they need. And also recognising where the jumping off points are. So, where can you direct somebody? What's the next step in their journey? What are the things that it would be really useful for them to engage with? So really trying to think about that as a funnel, I guess, so that we end up with really strong startup or spin out companies who have had all the support that they need along each step of the way. But you're right, and it's the kind of mature ecosystem is interesting because although duplication might seem frustrating, actually having options, having different possibilities, having different programs that might overlap, but that all offer people something slightly different or that suits their particular journey or that corresponds to the area of work that they're working in. I think that's really fantastic at the end of the day. And you wouldn't want to squash that as you're trying to make it look a bit neater and tidier for people to navigate through.
I mean, I think that's really important. Ultimately, it's that whole we're people, and we like to work with people that we have connections with. And there's one thing in the report that it's a double-page spread, and obviously we'll share the link to the report as well, where you go through the different journey and the different stages, and you can see the mapping of all of the different resources that are available. And it's great, and like you say, there's a variety of different things for people, whichever angle they're coming from. So I do really like that. The other thing James picked up on was the examples within the report. How do you decide which examples get picked?
Oh, that's a really tough one. It is really hard because we have so many phenomenal success stories. You've got companies like Riverlane who are leading globally on quantum error correction. They've just raised a £98 million Series C round. And, that is phenomenal, really. But at the same token, you've got somebody like Versed AI, which was part of the postdoc business plan competition back in 2019, who were working with an LLP platform and using AI to understand and manage supply chain and helping companies with that who've just been acquired by Exeger. And then a whole range of smaller companies, but doing really phenomenal things like Xampla, who themselves are working in a technology, working with existing manufacturers to replace polluting plastics with natural and biodegradable materials. So there's a wealth of options to pick from. What we try and do, I guess, is give as broad a spectrum as we can, because one of the things that we're really keen to understand is that when people come into the university, whether they're an undergraduate student or whether they're part of the academic faculty, everybody has their own unique entrepreneurial journey. They'll all approach it differently. They'll all need different types of support. And so we're using that categorization of where are you in your journey to help people from, those that just want to come in and be immersed in it, but might not be a founder, right the way through to those people that turn up and they have their idea, they've got their team, and they just want to know where the investment is.
If you are a startup looking to grow in Cambridge, the Bradfield Centre offers a range of flexible membership packages which put you in control of your office and home working mix. There's a vibrant, collaborative atmosphere, on-site cafe, plenty of green outside space, and regular member social events. We also offer a range of high-quality meeting spaces for hire, and for tech event organisers, our auditorium, lakeside pavilion and atrium spaces are perfect to bring your communities together for in-person and hybrid events. For more information, visit bradfieldcentre.com or call 01223 919 600.
How much did the startups and spin-outs, how much do they come together? So that, yes, they can go and join all of the different programs that help them on their own individual journey. Are there actual activities underway that bring those entrepreneurs together?
I think as a whole, we launched the IE Cambridge app, and that's a way really for everybody to be able to kind of connect to like-minded founders or just individuals within the university. So we're hoping that that's a virtual platform. I would say most programs and support programs really try and emphasize having a cohort basis. For me, one of the things that I've seen throughout my career, and James, you might agree, is that when people join support programs, one of the things that they value least when they're going in is that peer network. But actually, when they exit the program, the thing that all of them talk about, which was really fundamental, is how important it was to be able to talk to people that were on a similar journey to them. So I think that's really important. And we try, through having Idea Space, which is a community of founders, but also through our events and activities to really bring people together and try and connect them, not just to people who are where they are, but those near peers, somebody that's maybe 4 or 5 years down the line, as well as inviting people like Steve Brealey from Riverlane to come back and talk to people who are right at the start of their journey.
Yeah, we're talking to Impulse next week.
Okay.
And that's very much their ethos as well, which is, putting the more established entrepreneurs, the people who have exited with the ones that are really early stage as well.
Absolutely. And, one of the things that we find, especially when we came to do the case studies and the videos for IE Cambridge, was that when you're talking to a founder, it's very rare that they'll have done just one thing. They might have been involved in iTeams, and then they'll have gone and done something like enterprise tech, and then they'll have gone to Impulse, and then they'll come to Cambridge Enterprise Ventures. So, that connectedness is really important to us, that actually it's the whole ecosystem supporting these people on their journeys.
I think that's absolutely right. It's not a binary choice, is it? You're not picking one program. You see people, going on multiple programs over a period of years, right?
Yeah.
And, competitions as well. People apply to multiple competitions running across the university. So I think that's a really important point, which is why maybe at a first take, you think there's so much going on, so much duplication, but it's not a question of picking one over the other.
So, Caroline, another part of the report talks about the importance of the university investing in all of these startups. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So Cambridge Enterprise Ventures is part of Cambridge Enterprise and really is responsible for doing the investment on behalf of the university. I mean, we're incredibly lucky, and I appreciate this because I deal with lots of other universities globally, but we're very lucky to have had an investment fund for 25 years now. And that's enabled us to be able to really invest right from the early stage in the university's own spin-outs and startups. So I think we've now invested about 42 million over the fund lifetime. But one of the things that I think is really interesting, which doesn't necessarily get pulled out in the report, is that actually 23.9, so nearly 24 million of that has been in the last 5 years. And I think that's really indicative of not just the scale of spin-outs and startups that we're starting to see come out of the university, but also Cambridge Enterprises Ventures and the appetite of the university to really back this agenda.
Yeah, and I know we're having Christine Martin, who heads up Ventures, onto the podcast early next year as well, so she can definitely tell us more then.
And I think, another substantial investment from Cambridge Enterprise and a very hands-on development has been the launch of founders at the University of Cambridge.
Yep.
How does that kind of fit within the portfolio?
As you say, there's a huge wealth of support across the university. I think we're seeing more engagement than we ever have done. So, for example, within the colleges, you'll be aware there's been leading colleges like King's and Trinity that have been doing a lot of work, Pembroke with the Palmy Prize and Hughes Hall. But we're now starting to see other colleges also get involved in entrepreneurship as well. And that's really great from a kind of grassroots level. But then, as you mentioned, there's been a lot of investment from a university level perspective in terms of looking at how do we put in university-wide offers? And that's where Founders has come in. So that's really been about doing something university-wide, encouraging everybody, both from students, from academic faculty, and from alumni as well, to really get engaged in this agenda. So they launched earlier in the year with an accelerator program, START, and that went really successfully. They are just announcing or have just announced the launch of Sync, which is a venture builder program. And the idea for this really is to get those people who may not have the idea, the technology or the innovation, but really have the appetite to go into this space, to come together, to form a team, and then to start looking at, okay, well, what's the thing that we're going to take forward? So really, really excited to see how that develops. It's a pilot program. I am sure there will be iteration as they go along, but I know the team at Founders are really excited about seeing how this works and seeing how we unlock another part of that kind of entrepreneurial ecosystem within the university.
I don't know if it's a two-part question or just two separate questions about Cambridge and doing entrepreneurship in Cambridge in particular. So the first part, if you like, is what are you seeing from your position? Are you seeing like a rise in the level of interest in entrepreneurship across all levels, from students through to researchers? Because I wonder if I sit in a bubble, because obviously it's in all of our interests that entrepreneurship is what we talk about every day of every minute of every day. But, is there a rising interest in entrepreneurship from the students and researchers that you're interacting with?
I think so, yes. I genuinely think so. I mean, I think we're very lucky at Cambridge. There's always been that culture of innovation and entrepreneurship back before there was a Cambridge Enterprise and back before there was any structured support programs. You just have to look at the kind of birth of Cambridge Consultants and everything that came after that, as, there were always academics that were interested in taking their research out to create real world impact. But I think now that there is so much support and now that it's much more visible, and also I think the move from the university and the colleges as a whole to embrace it and see it as being, entrepreneurship is a valid alternative to employment, that actually starting and funding your own company and being able to make a success of that with all the support that there is. Yeah, I think there is definitely a change. We have a really large postdoc community at the university, and many of those won't necessarily stay in academia and won't stay at the University of Cambridge. So one of the things that we try and do specifically with that group is to get them to really understand what the options are and how they can use their research to create a company or to create a future for themselves as well. So that's something we're spending quite a bit of time at the moment with, doing very specific events and really talking to that audience about how they can access the support available.
And then the second part to that question is, obviously Cambridge has a very high academic bar to get into the university. So how, in your experience, does the temptation, if that's the right word, of entrepreneurship and, forming your own company go alongside the academic side of being at Cambridge? And does that maybe lead to slightly older first-time founders that have been through the academic side of the university and maybe are at that stage that you're describing, being a postdoc and looking how they might commercialize research or something like that? How do you see those two worlds and how do they coexist?
Yeah, I think it's a really valid point. And this goes back to what I was saying about recognizing there's lots of different entrepreneurial journeys. Cambridge Enterprise deals a lot with the IP rich spin outs, if you like, from the university. So we'll deal with postdocs, but mainly academic faculty, early career researchers, as well as our long-standing faculty, where you're actually taking the research and it has, patentable properties around it. So Cambridge Enterprise deals with really the IP-rich spin-outs from the university, so predominantly our faculty, but also our postdocs. I think where we're seeing a change is around the student community, and there is still a tension, I think, between, wanting to support undergraduates and postgraduates that want to found their own companies, with the fact that obviously we want them to concentrate on their academic studies. So one of the things that IE Cambridge will be doing over the next year is actually to look at how does the university come up with a strategy for supporting student entrepreneurship in a way where both of those things can happily sort of coincide, and you're not going to negate the results and people focusing on their degrees with also the temptation and the ambition that they have to maybe become founders and set up their own startups.
Really fascinating conversation, Caroline. I guess just leading on from that, so you've just given us one example of what IE Cambridge is going to be looking at moving forward. What else have you got in plan? You've now got this unified message out there that people can really grab hold of. You're galvanizing an ecosystem to work together and to offer lots of opportunities. what's your next big tick in the box?
Yeah. So I think the entrepreneurship report is hopefully for us a bit of a rallying cry. The idea is to say, look, we are doing incredible things, but we could be doing more, and this is a success we can build upon. So we're going to go into quite a big promotional campaign up until Christmas in the new year, which is really just trying to get the awareness and the visibility out there. Somebody was saying to me, it's a bit like being the salt rather than the pepper. We want to be deeply ingrained within the university so that people know that that's the first place that they can go to. And then underpinning that, you mentioned the support guide, which brings all of the support together. That's now in a fully searchable database on our website, which gets relaunched this week. So we've added a lot more functionality, we've added more resources and capability to it. And the idea being that that's that front door into your world of support as well. We run a whole range of events throughout the academic year. Again, really just trying to bring, look, here's the support to the people who are looking at it. So we do generic ones such as our IE Expo, which happens in November as part of Global Entrepreneurship Week, but also doing very specific events for postdocs. We're working on one on social innovation and social ventures. We're doing another one on So You Want to Work in Startups, which are those people who aren't necessarily founders, but really like the idea of working in a startup environment. So just trying to think through, like, how can we meet people at the point of where they are in their journey?
Fabulous. Yeah, I mean, it's been, like I said, from the outside looking in, it's just, it's been such a change over the last, 3-4 years. You must be hugely proud of everything the team's accomplished.
Yeah, definitely. And I have to keep reminding myself that we are only like 18 months into this journey since we launched. The team's done a phenomenal job. And I think we've still got a long way to go. But I'm in the US next week going to visit some of the universities in Boston and New York to see how they do things. Looking forward to bringing back a whole armful of new ideas of things that we can implement to continue to really build on this. So, watch this space, hopefully more to come.
And the new CEO might have a few new ideas as well.
I'm sure he will. I'm absolutely sure he will. But I think, from initial conversations, he really understands the value of this. I think Dermot O'Brien, our previous CEO, did a fantastic job of recognising that there was, a space to take what was there, but maybe not fully utilised and not really performing, and to be able to give it some resource and some investment. And I think we're starting to see very much, that vision come to life. I just think now it's about building on it.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for taking the time out, and we'll make sure there's links to download the report on the episode notes.
My pleasure. Thanks very much for having me.
Today's show was produced by Carl Homer of Cambridge TV and supported by our media partner, Business Weekly. The Cambridge Tech Podcast is available on all major podcast platforms and on cambridgetechpodcast.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please give it a 5-star review. It will really help others discover the show.